You guys take food home last night? Oh, good. I'm glad. Did people take food home? Good. Oh, wow. You look so beautiful.
Oh, I thought you meant me.
No, I didn't. Also,
You
know that house is so elegant. I know.
This is who I wanted to see.
Sorry, can you hear? Doing all right?
How are you?
Friends, we invite you to please come close, come around to both sides of the shelter. And we really want Saul's family to feel your presence and surrounded by your support. So we're going to ask you to please come in close. We'll be starting in just a moment.
Hi, Liz. I'm Emily. Yes, well, we'll still do that next time. Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And congratulations on the new job at my alma mater. Oh, very great. I love it there. I got a whole pack. I got lots of different, and I think I'll give you a whole. Oh wow! Let's go back.
Ladies and gentlemen, please come forward. You'll be able to hear much better. You can fill this area. We have a lot on this side as well. If I can remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones for the service.
Thought about it before. And
On behalf of Saul's family, I want to thank you all for being here and lending your presence and your support. I'm Rabbi Solomon Grunwald of Congregation HEA, and I'm joined here today in leading this service by Eitan Cantor, our musical director at HEA, and Cantor Goldstein from BMH. We'll start the service as I invite Cantor Goldstein to chant Psalm 23.
I realized on my way over here how many Klein, Schaffner, all of the family events I've been to. And even though this one is a sad one, if you make it to 94 and you know who you are and what you're doing, that's an amazing accomplishment. Saul was one of the sweetest guys I ever met. I never saw him do anything but smile. And he loved music. He loved chazanut and always mentioned to me when he came to shul. So I'd love to sing this beautiful psalm that talks about finding rest. Menucha. Ismo ledavni Adonai rohi lo echsar inodeshe yarbitzeni al me menuchot ינעלני נפשי ישובב ינחני במגלי צדק למען שמו גם כי אלך בגץ על מוות לא יירא רע כי אתה עמדי שירתך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד צורך. תישנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה, אך טוב בחסד ירדפוני. ימי חיי ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Mizmor LeDavid, a psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Giving me repose in green pastures, leading me beside still waters, restoring my soul, guiding me in straight paths, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my foes. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. Kerachem av al banim, richem Adonai al yereav, ki hu yadai yitzreinu zachor ki afar anachnu. As a parent has compassion for their children, Adonai has compassion for those who show reverence. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are dust. The days of mortals are like grass. We flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over them, and they are no more, and no one can recognize where they grew. But Adonai's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children, to all the reverent ones, endures age after age, unchanging. Today we gather to perform a great mitzvah, a mitzvah of compassion and love, to accompany Saul Davidson on his journey to the next world, To return his body to the earth from where it came is a great mitzvah, and also to accompany his soul and to lift up his memory with words of love and of memory and family. Pirkei Avot, the 2nd century compendium of Jewish wisdom, states in the name of the ancient sage Shammai, make your study of Torah a fixed practice. Speak little and do much, and receive all people with a pleasant countenance. I think Saul Davidson embodied these character strengths. He was a deeply intellectual and learned person. He was quiet. He was a quiet, gentle soul who spoke when he had something important to say, and he had a pleasant disposition toward other people. We will hear from several of Saul's family members this morning who will share their warm memories and tell us stories from Saul's remarkable life. So we'll just begin with some facts. Saul Norman Davidson was born on June 13, 1928 in New Rochelle, New York, to Benjamin and Edith Davidson, who had immigrated to the United States from Eastern Europe. Saul was the youngest of 3 children, his older brother Sid and his sister Bee. Benjamin was a sheet metal worker at the Brooklyn Navy Yard and passed away suddenly in 1953. Nonetheless, Saul was an excellent student, and at 16 years old, he was admitted on a full academic scholarship to Cooper Union College in New York, where he graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering. He served in the National Guard and later enlisted in the Air Force. The Air Force gave him a choice of assignments between Biloxi, Mississippi, and Denver. He chose Lowry Air Force Base, where he completed his training and served as an instructor for weapons systems. While stationed at Lowry, he attended a social event hosted by the base chaplain. It was there that Saul met Annette Miller. It was love at first sight, and he proposed to Annette on their second date. They married in Denver in 1952 and had 3 wonderful children together, Lynn, Beth, and Ellen. Saul and Annette had a happy and loving relationship. They set an example for their daughters that they would seek to emulate in their own families. Saul was warm and demonstrative. He worked long hours and was dedicated to his career in commercial real estate. Nonetheless, he and Annette enjoyed time together, and they traveled, and they set that as an example as well for their family. Saul was easygoing, never raised his voice. He was brilliant and learned. He read extensively and was intellectually curious. He loved a good meal, and he loved his friends. But most of all, he was dedicated to his family. Saul and Annette were married for 45 years until Annette's untimely passing in 1997. Saul Davidson was also a community-minded person. He was very involved in the BMH, where he and his family belonged, and his in-laws were very active. He thought of others and went out of his way to help. When Saul moved to Denver, he helped other family members from New York to come out west and set them up with jobs. He was dedicated to the Jewish community, supporting Jewish Family Service, Allied Jewish Federation, now Jewish Colorado, and he served as the president of the board of the Denver JCC. Saul supported and encouraged his children and grandchildren in their education. He was active and involved as a grandfather and great-grandfather. He was very close to all his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, whether they lived in Denver or Chicago. He always wanted to know what they were doing. He took great pride in their many accomplishments. Perhaps Saul's greatest joy in recent years was the blessing of welcoming 7 great-grandchildren. The last several times that I saw Saul in shore were for the namings of his great-granddaughters and holding his great-grandsons for their brisses. Saul was happiest of all when he had the whole clan together for family vacations in the mountains or Glenwood Springs. We'll hear much more from Saul's children and grandchildren shortly. After Annette's passing, Saul had a lovely relationship relationship with Esther Strauss, who also died too young. And in his later years, Saul met Jerry Bobrick at Candlewick, where they both lived. Saul had played poker with Jerry's late husband, and he met Jerry when the two of them were in water aerobics together. Saul and Jerry had a wonderful relationship and friendship. They supported and took care of one another. Jerry says that Saul never complained, even when he would take her to all her doctor's appointments and wait for her weekly hairdo. Then after the hair appointment, they would have lunch at Panera together. They had dinner in the evenings, and he would visit her at her apartment and watch TV together every night from 7 to 9 p.m. Like clockwork, he would empty her trash and bring her mail up to her. Saul Davidson was a kind, honest, hardworking man who loved his family and his community. He lived a long, very healthy life, and he died peacefully, embraced by the love of his beautiful, large family. We will hear more now from his family, starting with his daughters, and we call forward Ellen Klein to speak.
This quote reminds me of my dad. That man is a success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much. Thank you all for being here today in person and on Zoom. There is sad, and then there is tragic. I am so sad to be at the funeral of my dad. We will all miss him terribly. However, this is not tragic. My prayer for all of us is to live independently, never spend a full night in the hospital, and die painlessly and peacefully at 94. I am truly privileged to have had my dad in my life for so many years. It is a blessing that he could experience his 6 grandchildren grow up. It's extra special that he could participate in the naming and births of all 7 of his grandchildren, great-grandchildren, including the youngest, Shia, who was born the end of June. My mom and dad were great role models of a committed and loving marriage. I'm lucky to have a spouse that is also a wonderful partner, parent, and Zadie. My parents showed by example how to be patient, kind, and selfless. My sisters and I had parents that instilled the value of family and staying closely connected. My mom passed away almost 25 years ago. My dad showed us what true compassion and devotion looks like as he took on the role of caregiver. My dad was lucky to love 3 women. After my mom passed away, he was in a committed relationship with my sister-in-law, Sandy Klein's mom, Esther Strauss, until her untimely death. Jerry Bobrick has been my dad's partner and a dear member of our family for almost 20 years. Jerry added so much quality to his life and ours. A native of New York, he grew up in a close family. His brother Sid was much like my dad. He was intelligent, introspective, and lived an active life until he passed away at the same age of 94. His sister B was just like my grandmother, who we called Mama E. They were bright, warm, and gracious. My Aunt B had a stroke 6 years before she passed away and lived in Shalom Park. My dad would visit her almost every Sunday and help feed her. Unfortunately, I never knew my dad's father, Benjamin, who my sister Beth is named after. There were many important people in his life, including my wonderful aunts, uncles, and cousins. My dad very fondly spoke of his father-in-law, Dr. Eli Miller, who I am named after, as a gentleman and a mentor. I wanted to thank my cousin, Linda Brothers, for being such a huge help and special niece to him. I am grateful the Pepper Jerwick family, who started as neighbors, became part of our family by choice. My dad loved games and was extremely competitive, which he just might have passed on to me. He was a great bridge player and also enjoyed his regular poker games. He was sharp until the very end. He read 2 to 3 books a week and usually had a 1,000 to 3,000 piece puzzle he was working on. I wanted to share with you his last weekend. Saturday, he drove Jerry to my granddaughter's, Lexi Feldman's, 3rd birthday party and immensely enjoyed the celebration and watching the great grandchildren. Sunday, he went by ambulance to the hospital. It's unbelievable that he had only had outpatient procedures and it was his first time being admitted into the hospital. Being the eternal optimist, he very reluctantly canceled his Monday bridge and Monday poker games, still hoping he would be sent home that day. He was a huge fan of the Broncos and watched his last game from his hospital bed. While eating dinner, he studied the room service menu to decide what he wanted to eat for breakfast. Once he made a decision, he asked me to place the order. The nurse said we had to wait to place the breakfast order until the morning. In the middle of the night, while a different nurse was taking his vitals, he again asked when he could order breakfast. We were all surprised that he passed away, but I think he would have been the most surprised. Dad, thank you for your constant love and support over the years. I love you very much.
Thank you, Ellen. We now call on Beth and Lynn, and also Jeff.
We will always remember, do what you do. The fun game Dad created to get us to wash our hands before dinner. Going to look at properties as a family on the weekends. We thought everyone looked at properties on the weekends. Our Shabbat dinners with one of our grandmothers pretty much every Friday, either Mom Amy or Mama E. We will always remember Dad's optimistic outlook, his patience, and the very close relationships Dad and Mom had with their parents, siblings, and our cousins, and we'll continue to try to emulate that. We will always remember our dad's emphasis on Judaism and education. He sent all 3 of us to Israel as teens. Beth found a love of travel. Ellen found Evan. And I found many lifelong friends. We will always remember our dad instilled in us that family are friends and friends are family. For example, he built stairs to connect the Peppers and us, which made 2 families into one.
Well, as we all know, Saul was a man of few words. Relative to Saul, I have already droned on far too long. However, I think it is important to convey a few more words. It was 94 years after his birth, we gather to remember and consider his worth. 4 plus 14 since being born in New York, still had the accent that he got from the store. Up to the present, it was quite a ride, so listen quite closely as we now confide.
There are many stories which we could relay, anecdotes of our hero on this autumn day. It's been many years since he left for Michelle. Out west to the Rockies is where he did well. He worked in the Catskills. In fact, he was super. He graduated from college with distinction at Cooper. The girl of his dreams, double dating, he met. He proposed on date 2 and wed his Annette. The 3 girls were soon born, Beth, Ellen, and Lynn. The dog soon followed, and the bathroom, he was never able to get through.
Our house near my BFF Jeannie got considerable hype when Parade magazine put it in type. A lot of events were spent at Green Gables. The girls sunned at the pool, while Saul hit the tables.
Card games were serious, not idle diversions. He would dissect the deck as if he were a surgeon. A man of vast interests from music to art, travel, reading, and puzzling were dear to his heart. A love of the theater, he was such a big fan. Seeing shows with the Schaffners was part of the plan. Reminiscing about food, a mind sharp and alert. Sabatini's in Florence, Caesar salad for dessert. Real estate was his forte. Through purchase and sale, he developed great parcels. He even made bail.
Loquacious he was not. Silence he would not rest. When treating to dinner, he only said, "Table for 10, and please give me the check." The kids then got married and started new lives. The transition from girls to new husbands' wives. The in-laws were lovely. Esther, Sid, Berta, and Lonnie. And several years later came Pat and Donnie. Along came 6 grandkids, such wonderful bliss. Shannon and Sean, Shara, Alana, and Monica, and the list. Birthdays and weddings were of utmost importance. You never would miss any of that.
Esther and Jerry also played a big part. We owe them great thanks for capturing his and our heart. Grateful for all of the gifts that you gave. We love you. We miss you. You're always our fave. Thank you.
Perhaps Saul's greatest source of pride and joy were his grandchildren and their children. I'd like to invite all of the grandchildren forward now. And we'll hear from Monica, Alana, Shannon, and Sharis.
I feel so fortunate to have gotten to spend 35 years with my Papa Saul. We're so lucky that our friends, husbands, and children have the opportunity to get to know him and love him as well. Papa Saul was a stable and calming presence in all of our lives. He was a constant at family events, birthday parties, holidays, Shabbat dinner, and everyday life. The day before the day before we came home from the hospital with Shia, only a few months ago, we had Shabbat dinner, and he, of course, was there. He sat there holding her with love in his eyes, and we talked about how special it was to see them together, 94 years apart. I wish she had more time with him, but I'm so grateful that she got to know him and feel his love. This past Saturday, his last good day, he spent with Jerry at Lexi's princess-themed 3rd birthday party. He sat there quietly in the middle of the party, drinking out of a princess swirly straw and observing all 7 of his great-grandchildren with a big smile on his face. And that was Papa Saul. He was quiet, mild-mannered, even-tempered, and he was always there. Papa Saul was the most patient and easygoing person I knew. I remember spending afternoons with him and Mom Annette, and he would make us the best mac and cheese and chocolate milk, and we would sit there and play war with him for hours. Only a truly patient person could sit there and play war with 3 elementary school girls for that long. Papa Saul was incredibly smart and valued hard work and education. He was one of my biggest supporters when I was studying for my CPA exam and an excellent sounding board throughout school and my career. He loved reading and even loved listening to Lexi pretend to read him stories from her books. He was great with names and faces, and he never forgot a birthday. He wasn't a sappy person, but he would always mail these super sweet birthday cards, usually at least a week in advance. Papa Saul was always so strong and independent, and in his quiet way, he always let you know he cared. We all miss him so much and are thankful that we got to have him for so many years.
All right. So my daughter Reagan was immediately drawn to Papa Saul, and the feeling was pretty mutual. I like to think it's because Reagan was named after Mom Annette. And Reagan Annette and Papa Saul had a really special bond. When she was little, Reagan would like to sit on Papa Saul's lap, and she would hold his hand at the Shabbat table. And when she first started speaking, there's a really sweet video of her and Papa Saul telling each other how much they loved each other. And I've watched it probably about 20 times this week. Once Reagan got a little bigger, she would constantly ask if Papa Saul was coming to dinner and then run up and give him a big hug when she saw him. I think Reagan's a good judge of character, and she knew that Papa Saul was someone incredibly special. I feel grateful to have been given so many good years with him, and that my husband Andronic got to know him, and he was able to meet Caleb, even if only for a little while. I'll cherish the photos of Papa Saul holding Caleb on the bima for his bris, and the fact that he was able to be a sondik for all three of his great-grandsons was pretty amazing. He had a really gentle way that he would hold Caleb's hand and he would kiss his head, and those are memories that I look forward to passing on. You really never saw a softer side to Papa Saul than when it came to his great-grandchildren. He taught me a lot of lessons in his day-to-day actions, including the importance of being kind and optimistic and patient. He never said a mean word except when it came to a board game and he thought you were cheating at Scrabble and making up a word. And when he would watch my sisters and I when we were younger, my parents would go out of town and he would stay with us for a week. And he'd sit quietly at the table while we talked and talked and talked and wait patiently while we took a long time getting ready for school. And that was him. He was just calm and composed. This past Monday, when I told Reagan that Papa Saul had passed away, her first comment was, "Jerry must be so sad. And Bubby and Mom and Caleb and me, we're all so sad." She knew that Papa Saul had a special place in Jerry's heart and in all of our hearts. My mom sometimes says that a day without seeing someone you love is like a day without sunshine. And I think that's kind of fitting today. And if he could, Papa Saul would be here. He'd be standing on the side quietly, wearing that really ugly black hat that he always wore when it was cold. And no matter what else was happening, he would be here because he always showed up for the people that he loved. So his warmth and his presence will be really missed. And his memory will live on through all of us and through the stories we'll continue to share of his life and his legacy.
Hi, I'm Sheriff Klein Berlinberg. I'm Ellen's daughter and one of the triplets. While many women marry men like their fathers, I took a different approach. My wonderful husband, Adam, is very similar to my grandfather. Both men are intelligent, introspective, supportive partners, patient, caring, loving, and most of all, very kind. I feel very thankful to have a man who emulates many of the qualities found in my grandfather, a man I loved and respected profusely. My grandfather was smart, but not smart in a typical way. He was really, really smart. He had an incredible intellect, which he used to accomplish amazing feats professionally. In business, he was far ahead of his time and possessed an amazing ability to think outside of the box. He never settled for the ordinary professionally, instead preferring to find the big deals and to do huge things. My grandfather helped turn Colorado into the thriving state that it is today, and many of his projects have had lasting impacts. He was also formally educated, having attended an outstanding university due to his superb test scores. Like I said, he was really, really smart. He understood the importance of education and he valued it. While I was pursuing my doctorate degree, no one supported me more than my Papa Saul. He encouraged me to obtain a doctorate by reiterating the importance of education and stating that it is the only thing that someone can never take away from you. When we would talk, he would eagerly ask me about my progress and even manage to act excited about the mundane details of my dissertation. Trust me, this is hard to do. He was an avid reader throughout his life, devouring multiple books a week. Not a typical passionate reader, but a really, really enthusiastic reader. While some people read one book a week or a month, oh no, that was not my grandfather. He would devour multiple books in a week. He was never ordinary, doing things big and extraordinary. During our frequent visits and phone calls, he would always share with me what he was reading and provide recommendations. While he read different genres, he had a particular liking for nonfiction and biographical works. Adam once gave him an extremely dry medical book, and my grandfather read the book from cover to cover, even remarking that he found it interesting. This is a feat. His intelligence was also realized in its love and frequent victories while playing card games, especially bridge and poker. He was an avid card player, playing frequently with friends. He was kind and mild-mannered, as you've heard, except when it came to games. During games, he was competitive, but not slightly competitive. He was very, very competitive, much like his daughter, Ellen. While my grandfather was many things, his kindness was what always stood out to me the most. He was not kind in a typical way. He was completely selfless, and he always strove to put others first. Even in his 90s, he would ask me if he could help me carry things. I'm in my 30s, he's in his 90s, and yet he's trying to help me. That's just Papa Saul. He refused help, but never hesitated to give to others anything he could. When my sisters and I would go have meals with him and Jerry, he would play host, providing drinks and making sure everyone was comfortable. This was him, always wanting to ensure those around were doing well. His kindness never shone brighter than with his 7 great-grandchildren. I feel blessed that my grandfather got to meet my children, Jorah and Micah, but more in the fact that they didn't have more time with this amazing man. Whenever he was with the children, he would tell them he loved them, and he never hesitated to read their books or hold them. They loved their Papa Saul. Just 4 hours before his death, Jorah, Micah, Adam, and I visited Papa Saul in the hospital. In the hospital bed, Papa Saul was holding Micah and giving Jorah high fives. When asked what role he liked best, that of parent, grandparent, or great-grandparent, he replied that his favorite was being a great-grandparent. Papa Saul certainly excelled at the role of great-grandparent, and he captured the heart of all of the children. Thinking about Jorah giving Papa Saul hugs and blowing him kisses warmed my heart. Papa Saul was exceedingly patient. He was patient in a way that he was able to watch 3 rowdy teenage girls and 2 high-maintenance dogs when my parents would go out of town and never get riled. He was the most laid-back babysitter ever. If I missed the school bus, which did happen frequently, he would, without complaint, drive me to school. This was Papa Saul. He took everything in stride and never let anything get to him. Through our teenage dramas, he managed to stay cool, calm, and collected. And of course he did. He was Papa Saul. When we would go to Papa Saul's house, he would make us challah with butter and chocolate with milk. While Papa Saul's famous chocolate milk was 90% chocolate and 10% milk, he made it because we loved it. We would go to his house frequently as kids and often ended up playing war. He would patiently play with us for hours, pretending not to notice our blatant cheating. This was Papa Saul, always cool, even in the middle of war. I want to extend a thank you to Jerry. You were a light in his life for the past 18 years, and you are like a grandmother to me and my siblings and cousins. I love you very much. Thank you for all you've given to us and to my grandfather. Papa Saul taught me a lot about how to be a supportive and loving partner. He set the standard very high. My Papa Saul was an amazing human being and an incredible grandfather. I feel blessed that he was in my life for so many years and will miss him greatly. I will miss the loving way he would say, "Hi, dear," and "Thank you for calling." The way his hello always had a bit of a New York accent, and his sweet cards. But most of all, I'll just miss him. His presence, his mannerisms, and his wisdom. The way he loved his family, his partner, and everyone he knew. I am so glad he is gone. I'm so sad that he is gone, but he will certainly not be forgotten. His memory is most definitely a blessing. Hi, thank you for coming. I am Shannon Berman, Beth's daughter, and I was Saul and Annette's oldest grandchild. I loved spending time with them during many holidays, birthdays, and other fun celebrations, along with my cousins. My fondest memories of my grandparents during my childhood were when they picked us up from my brother and I up from religious school on Saturday afternoons, and they took us to their apartment for lunch. While Mama Annette made Kraft macaroni and cheese or spaghetti for us, Papa Saul and I and Sean would all play war with 3 decks of cards. It took us a while to get through a game. Papa Saul's relationship with Mama Annette was an example of love and lifelong commitment, like his beautiful relationship with Jerry, who has become a beloved part of our family. Mama Annette and Papa Saul were both passionate about education. Mama Annette had been an elementary school teacher and inspired me to become an educator as well. Papa Saul spent many patient hours helping me write essays to get into UNC and CU Denver, study for exams, and it challenged me to get higher bowling scores. Papa Saul was very excited to become a great-grandfather. I'll never forget the proud look on his face when he became the Sondig at Samuel's breast. I'm so grateful that Samuel had the chance to learn from such a wise man. Papa Saul adored Samuel and looked forward to seeing him as well as all of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I really got the chance to get to know him the last few years. He made me dinner every week on my bowling league night. When I was a teenager, I would call the Candlewick apartment hoping to talk to both of my grandparents. When Papa Saul answered, he would immediately hand the phone to Mama Annette. And he was a man of few words. But on our weekly dinner dates, we had the chance to do puzzles, talk about the Broncos, bowling, work, and school, and all about the family history. He always made me feel very special during our time together, and I know he was very proud to see me achieve my goal to become an early childhood special educator in the Cherry Creek School District this past few months, and to know that all of our study sessions helped me to make my dream come true. Papa Saul taught us all through his actions of love and family, and we hope to honor his memory and carry on this legacy. We love you and miss you, Papa Saul.
I'm Melissa. I'm the youngest granddaughter. And it's just so surreal to think that in the future at family events, trips, driving around Denver, so won't be with us. And I know I'll so miss our phone calls where we talk about everything from current events to what he was most recently reading and all of the updates on the family. He will just be so missed and was such a wonderful person. I know as we've said, he set such a wonderful example for all of us with his selflessness, how important Judaism was to him, and most of all, how he put his family first. And I think those are just such wonderful values that I know, we'll all look to also emulate and continue to take forward in his family.
I now invite Sean Chapman forward to offer a song.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, braving the cold. Saul, as you heard, was a theater lover, and some of my mom's favorite memories of him were traveling to New York and going to see the original cast of Hello, Dolly and Fiddler on the Roof. And he inspired that love of theater in all of his family. This is a song from a chorus line, his favorite musical. We were going to get the kick line together, but we didn't have time to work on that choreo, so next year. But for now, this is called What I Did for Love. Yesterday, goodbye. The sweetness and the sorrow. Wish me luck the same to you. But I won't forget what I did for love. What I did for love. Look, my eyes are dry. The gift was ours to borrow. It's as if we always knew. But I won't regret what I did for love. What I did for love. Gone. Love is never gone as we travel on. Love's what we'll remember. Kiss today goodbye and point me toward tomorrow. We did what we had to do. Won't forget, can't regret what I did for love. What I did for love. What I did for love.
In a moment, we'll be lowering the casket. The burial of our loved ones in Jewish tradition is referred to as chesed shel emet, the highest form of kindness that we can show another person, because it is a kindness for which we can never be thanked, for which we can never be repaid. And it is a mitzvah on family and on all of us present today to participate in the burial. It's customary to place at least 3 shovelfuls of earth in the grave and to return the shovel to the mound of earth. After the family has a chance to place earth in the grave, we'll invite the community forward to participate in the mitzvah. As we do that, Jim will present the flag to the family in honor of Saul's service.
On behalf of the President of the United States and the grateful nation, it's my privilege and honor to present the flag. Also in honor of the service of the United States.
שיר למענו, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מעמדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך. ידעו שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן, שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, ירח בלילה. אולי ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ביד עולם. מעתה ביד
Folks, we invite you to both sides of the grave here and participate. It's really starting. My phone is on too. Said it wasn't gonna ring. I would have different ones, you know. He said, it's gonna ring from 2 or 3. What app do you have? Oh, you want? Well, I have an app on my phone, but yeah, well, it's funny because they just never know where it's gonna set.
I have an umbrella.
Because all the ones I saw in South.
We have an extra round.
And if I have to start to work, it's
Sitting there. You see a little jury?
What? I don't know.
What's your name?
Hi, it's Sarah. Oh.
You want to just get me? I don't know if right there. I mean, I don't think you can. No. No. All right. Well, nobody can. She just wants us to be a part of it. Yeah, I know. But better than the alternative. Oh, yeah. Hi. Yeah.
Where's your daddy?
Get out the little.
Oh, okay.
But Bob, the wheels on the bus. Muddy. I know. You say something, we're tipping off. I know. Let's open it. Open it up.
It's in the brown building. It doesn't flush on the
Where's that?
So.
Yeah, because it's kind of heavy, so that's why you and me just.
You did.
וישוב העפר על הארץ כשהיה, והרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתנה. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to its source. To God who gave it, may Saul Davidson's soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. Send comfort Adonai to those who mourn, grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow, and let us say Amen. In a moment, we will invite Saul's family to recite the mourner's Kaddish. And I'll ask Lynn and Beth and Ellen to come forward. I also want to let you all know that family will be receiving visitors at Candlewick Clubhouse at the Candlewick Apartments located at 7865 East Mississippi Avenue from 2 p.m. today till 7 p.m. We ask you to please wait till 2 p.m. to visit. With a service this evening at 6 p.m. and tomorrow visitation at the same location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please note that there's parking available in the clubhouse or in the visitors parking lot. And the information that you received from Feldman should have a entry gate code on it. It's pound 8717 is the code to get inside. I think that should be on the papers that you received. We'll ask you to all please gather in close again as we invite Saul's daughters to recite mourner's Kaddish.
Bagala Wisman Kariv Emru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam U'Me'omaya. Yitbarach V'Yishtabach V'Yitpa'ar V'Yitomam V'Yitnaseh. V'Yitadar V'Yitaleh V'Yitalal Shnei V'Yishav V'Yilu. Le'ela Minko V'Chata V'Shirata. Tushbechata V'Nechemata. Tamiran Be'alma V'Imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Shemaya. Chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom V'Rumav U'Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'Imru
מעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מצילים את נשמת שלמה בן בנימין ואיתה שהלך לעולמו בגן מנוחתו אנה בעל הרחמים תראהו בסתר כנפך לעולמים וסור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו לנו
Almighty Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, and infinite rest in your sheltering presence among us. For the soul of Saul Davidson, in our tradition, Shlomo ben Benjamin Beit, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May Saul's soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We'll invite guests here to form two lines. These are called she wrote, two lines facing one another as a way of surrounding Saul's family with our love and support, and to escort them back to their vehicles. We offer traditional words of consolation. Hamakom yenachem etchem b'toch shah avei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you find comfort in the days and years ahead, in the loving memory of Saul Davidson and among all those who mourn for him. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Davidson.